The sad part is I'd be jamming in the background with singing. It's like every time, man, like no matter how I feel, as soon as I put on the music, I'm like, oh, we're about to do this thing, man. Welcome everyone to the Breathe Easy podcast. I am your host, Ralph Plaskett. I am joined by my co-host. Co-host, say hi.
Hi. Good evening, everybody. Thank y'all for joining us. Thanks for coming out. We have a great show lined up for you this evening.
And we have a special guest, Mr. Jerome Oliver. We're going to introduce him here in a second. But we got some housekeeping things that we got to take care of. First and foremost, we are so glad that you guys can join us this night. We have our loyal followers, our loyal viewers who come out and watch us every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are thankful for you guys. As you guys will know, if you watch any one of our episodes, we have a purpose for these episodes, this podcast that we have, right? Our intent here is really to do the work or contribute to destigmatizing mental health. What does that mean? Right? If we can boil it all down, we're focusing on creating psychological safety within our community. So we're going to have all kind of topics that's going to come up in these episodes, in this podcast, in these lives. Some of them might not seem as a connection to mental health, right? But we are all human. We all have mental capacity, and everything contributes or affects our mental health in some way, shape, or form. And the topic that we have tonight certainly plays into that, and it plays into the joy that brings us joy. Certainly, as we partake in what we're going to talk about tonight. Certainly, as we partake in it, and the memories and all of that stuff that comes with it. I don't want to give too much away. If you haven't already, go ahead and if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe. Go ahead and hit the bell button. If you're on Facebook, follow our page. Share, because it also helps us with our mission of destigmatizing mental health, creating psychological safety in our communities. If you just watched like 15 minutes before this just happened, I went live on Instagram on Breathe Easy Media's page as @Breathe Easy Media. If you don't follow us there, go ahead and follow. We're so excited for you to be along with us in this journey. So I am, I have a personal, and we have a lot of viewers, right? But I have a personal favorite of mine, and that's Miss Judy. Miss Judy comes through with the TNT flag, waving every time, watching our show on the live or afterwards. So happy that she can join us here this evening. So that was the intro, right? And then, we have the disclaimer that we got to get into before, we could really get into the nitty gritty of this episode, right? And usually our co-host Cal, he usually covers this disclaimer. Unfortunately, he's not here with us tonight, but I'm gonna read it for you because he had to take a drink of water in my new Breathe Easy Media cup, right? Well, so this content is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek advice of your mental health professionals or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding your condition. Never disregard professional advice or delay it in seeking it because of something that you heard here on this podcast. If you're in a crisis or if you think you're in an emergency, certainly call your doctor, call 911 immediately. If you have any suicidal thoughts, you can always call, no matter what time of day, 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. You can talk to a skilled, trained counselor at a crisis center in your area. That's the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. If you're located outside the United States, certainly call your local emergency line immediately. Breathe Easy Media is not a direct service organization. Breathe Easy Media does not recommend or endorse any clinicians, counselors, psychiatrists, social workers, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned in our podcast. Reliance on any information provided by Breathe Easy Media host or Breathe Easy Media guests or any others appearing on the Breathe Easy Media platform is solely at your own risk.
You did it. You did it.
Did it, man.
Oh, man.
All you know, Chris.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest for this evening. This gentleman is born in St. Thomas, USVI. He currently holds his he's a PhD candidate, at Howard University with a focus in environmental microbiology. He's very plan and goal-oriented individual, which pushes him to achieve various endeavors in life. He also has a strong passion for not only his cultural food, but the exploration of other cultural foods. The beauty of diversity intrigues him. I like that. Last but not least, he has a desire to help others and be a mentor to others when he is given the opportunity to do so. Mr. Jerome Oliver, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me. Very honored.
Microbiology, PhD. Woo-wee. I mean, you must be one smart guy, man.
One step at a time. I mean, it's beautiful because microorganisms play such a big role in not only in the environment, which is where my focus is in, but in the topic that we talked about today, which is food. Your yogurts, you have your bacteria there, you have microorganisms everywhere. So just the concept of knowing that something so small can play such a big role is intriguing.
Yeah, you scare me.
What's really in our food, Jerome? Tell us what's really good.
Yes.
So let's get into it, and I'm going to kick it off with a question to you. Talk to us about how your passion with food started.
So I would say my passion with food started as a young age. I guess I like to eat, so to speak. So the connection of food and enjoying like just the different tastes and flavors, what your parents give to you while you're, trying things to say yay or nay. My passion kind of more got driven because my father cooked a lot. And so cooking with him was one of the things I was able to kind of do and enjoy being able to do something with my father. I know most people would say, oh, their mother is the one who they look for their home cooked foods. It was the other way around in my household. It was, can't wait to see if my father will have some stewed chicken, some peas and rice and such there. So I would say that is what kind of like drove me to the passion of cooking.
Cool. So I've had the pleasure of tasting your food, and it is as good as advertised, first of all, let me say. And the thing about it is, and this is why we wanted to have you on as a guest this evening, I also had the pleasure of watching you prepare the food. And you can see that you truly have a passion and a joy for, cooking, and not only cooking, but watching people partake, in the foods that you prepare. Can you talk to us just about the joy that it brings you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the thing is, I feel when it comes to making food, you're putting a part of you in it. So like a smidget of your soul kind of falls into the pot if you have a true passion for it. And so being able to put something together and then be able to see someone enjoy the food and like the flavors you try to get, and just the smile on their face. Or, when some people are eating food and they enjoy it, they start to sing. Like, that's the exciting thing. Like, oh my goodness, this is great. So because also, like I said, it's like sharing who you are. And when I was talking, like you talked about in my intro, is even being able to share that with other cultures and other people, is that not only are you getting a part of who I am, but where I come from.
So I'm glad you brought up the intro, because I want to go back to that. The beauty of diversity intrigues me. You gotta explain that to us. Open it up for us.
Oh, definitely. I mean, when I went for my undergrad at George Mason University, boop boop for that, definitely.
Yeah.
It was one of the most diverse campuses in the Northern Virginia area. So we were connected to, like, the Caribbean Student Association is me and a group of my friends started, and then we connected with other organizations there, whether it be Ethiopian Student Association, Filipino Cultural Circle. So at that point, we got to see other people's cultures right on campus. Many of the places we had like cultural nights, because there was like an international week, which is basically just showing the diversity of different areas, different places. Flags are hung up in one of the big places there. And so every night you got to be able to get cultural food from these places, from these different countries. And of course, being undergraduate, you don't even really have that much money as it is, as well as now you could get free food from a different culture. So then I was able to even just explore the different cultures and the foods that I could enjoy. And so it's beautiful to be able to see even some smidgets of your culture mixed in to just show how united we are. And so that is kind of like where I say the beauty of everything just intrigues me. I remember doing basically a work like potluck, and it was one of the things that just surprised me so much was everybody didn't know what individuals were bringing. And what ended up happening was one person from Jamaica made sorrel, which everybody knows in the Caribbean is this great, made from hibiscus flowers and your sugar and a little bit of ginger for the kick. But there was two other countries represented that had the exact same drink but done differently. So we didn't even know that we shared something that in common. And I mean, it was basically Caribbean versus like Middle Eastern. So it's the idea of a Nigerian as well. So it's the idea that you could see where we are still united, yet have these things that are a little separate.
Yeah, and that's what I think. I was chatting with somebody. I don't know who it was at this point in time. The whole week is running together, but the one thing that you can find at any event, any celebration of life, anything is food. Food is a common denominator across the board, right? You want to have a conversation, be an easy conversation or a difficult one, be it a business deal or what have you. Food is at the center of it. All of the gatherings, family, food is at the center of it. And it's so interesting that you say, regardless of where, you said that example of your potluck, regardless of where these people were from, they came with a similar dish, right? I'd be interested to kind of have you expound even more on the whole diversity aspect and how we see, certain dishes kind of, certainly in the Caribbean, we see many of the dishes across island to island prepared in similar, if not exact ways. But I'll be interested to know, any more your perspective on that as we go beyond the Caribbean, as we go, within the African diaspora or even beyond that.
Oh, that's actually a good one. I mean, I feel that there's so many connections if you kind of look for it. For instance, I'm going to start off with a Caribbean dish. I'm going to jump to another Caribbean dish that kind of connects to different parts. So for instance, curry chicken. Of course, the spices, the curry, the yellow curry leaves that are blended up to give you your powder, and the turmeric just to make the color and flavors. Not only is found in the Caribbean, but we were trading spices, of course, connected to our histories before. But that also connects to Indian culture because they have the various different curries through that. So we have that connection through an entirely different area. Though the kind of interesting coin term of the West Indies, it kind of also blends into that. But even something, this is one of my favorites. Some people are not for it, but I'll state it anyway. I love souse, aka pig's feet. It is one of my most favorite things to eat. Many people, I know y'all can't get down with the pig feet too much, but it has that connection to the United States, connecting to African Americans, because they do pig's feet as well, not quite cooked the exact same way, but then they add a little hot sauce on it and it's perfect. For us, it's just more like a stew with a bread, but it has that connection that kind of blends through cultures and different areas. And then, of course, I feel everywhere has teas in general. We have our lemongrass teas and we have our bush teas, but those connect in almost every culture, as far as in all the way to like Asian type cultures, as well as, if you want to go as connecting to us to like British or UK, where they have their, English tea. It still has connections. So it's beautiful to see like how everything kind of interlocks, just if we looked a little bit harder.
It's funny, right? Because I think of some of my most vivid memories, and a lot of them are when I was sitting down enjoying a dish with somebody else or other people, and I can clearly remember the things I was eating at the time. So there's something about food that just brings people together and unifies them, even down to the saying, "Let's sit down and break bread."
Exactly.
There's just something about it, especially your food again, Jerome. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
No, it's beautiful to see. Like, as you say that, a memory. There's like a vivid memory. I'm sure this person has no idea that I remember this. It was when I was going to a different school, like in elementary, and we had a Thanksgiving kind of potluck. Her mom made a banana cream pie. Never had it ever. To this day, I can't forget it. And mind you, I feel like, as they would say, where we're from donkey years ago. I still remember it like it was yesterday. It was so phenomenal. I think, just like I said, the connections that we have with food, the flavors, the taste, it kind of sticks with you. It's like your mind wants to remember that good thing that you enjoyed so much that you can't let it go.
So I have a question. I'm gonna go a little off script here, and it just popped in my head because you were talking about the taste. For someone who is such a foodie or food connoisseur like yourself, I'm sure at some point you have had something prepared that didn't have no flavor or no taste. What is your general reaction? I'm assuming you're not telling the person. But what is your general reaction when you're tasting something and you're like, nah?
So that's actually funny. But I try to be as modest as possible, especially when it doesn't quite get there. But like, if it's the idea of like, if you want my honest opinion, I try to be, I'd give you hints as to what might be best. I mean, I've been told by my older siblings I'm one of the hardest food critics. So if I like it, it has to be good. But I try to be nice because, like I said, everybody's learning. Everybody has different steps. I remember making my first like personal pan pizza, and I was a kid. And instead of using regular flour, I used like self-raising. I mean, it was like a cake. It was horrible. But you're learning and growing and seeing what flavors blend. So I try to be, like I said, I be on the modest kind of calm and nice side. I think if you're a closer friend, I tend to be a little bit more honest than normal. I try to not destroy your passion and drive.
Jerome, I'm seeing some comments saying that you're gonna light them up if they don't come right with the food and the seasoning. You will not hesitate to let them know. So I guess we'll leave it at that. I'll take you at your word.
Yeah, there's a lot of comments about that, Oliver. I know that was probably the best PC version of I try to be modest.
Right.
So I asked, while you were talking, I asked the viewers rather, if they had any questions, and we had a question that came in from one of our viewers, one of our loyal viewers. Hey, Adri. She said, during the pandemic, did you find yourself creating any new dishes, right? You were just talking about experimenting. Did you find yourself experimenting with any new dishes, any new seasonings, or anything of the sort?
That's actually a great question. I was doing a lot of things during the pandemic. Of course, everybody had the bread kick, so of course, trying to find yeast in the stores was crazy. But I guess one thing I will say, when leaving from the Virgin Islands to here, one of the biggest things I kind of worked on or wanted to have is a way to connect to home. So that was through cooking. So I wanted to make sure to try and do our cultural dishes. So for one, the history and the connection is not lost. So one of the things I made was basically a raisin bun. And so I did that, but then I got creative with different things. So I made a sorrel ice cream. So it's like a vanilla ice cream with sorrel swirls in it. So it gives you that, it works really good because it's like almost like a strawberry type setup, of course, in a sorrel flavor. So it blended really well. And then I'm about to bring up the big V word that people run from, but I made a lot of vegan dishes as well. So I dabble in everything when it comes to food. So making different things that work, even incorporating different things that are culturally made. I'm veganizing it. And it still tastes great. So don't run from that.
Hey, anything is better than pig's feet.
A good pig's feet with some bread. It's the best thing ever.
Come on, Oliver. So you touched on a point that was very interesting to me, and so it's a point about your cultural traditions or cultural foods, and wanting to have that connection, right? I know, we're all from the Virgin Islands here. And I know the conversation about, losing our cultural identity or certainly losing our cultural foods because the younger generation isn't doing enough of learning how to make these dishes, right? So that whole thought process or that thing going away. What are your thoughts around that?
I'm actually kind of sad to see it happen. The idea of younger generations kind of losing the connections, because the food has more than just the flavors connection. For instance, if I have molasses up here, the reason why is because molasses is connected to our sugar mills and slave trade and our history. So losing even how our foods are made is that you're actually losing the parts of history that makes you know who you are, especially when it comes to your cultural identity. And then even sadly, when going home, there's not as many places that are making our traditional foods as much. It's more of like a mix of full Caribbean, which is not a bad thing, but there are some individualities in between each island that makes each island shine. I.e., Trinidad is good for their curry. I mean, how many people really have a VI potato stuffing? Many people don't know about it, but the minute they've had it, that's something that's connected to us. Our patés versus Jamaican patties, which I am very much biased. I'm definitely towards the patés, but the new generation, I know there's sprinkles of individuals who are holding on, and of course trying to get their grandmother or grandfather or their family's recipes, but I think that's important. It helps to build that foundation that connects you and has you grounded in who you are on all levels.
So, how do I want to say this? All right, so I kind of called out the younger generation there for a second, and saying they don't really, they're not certainly not as the older generation was dependent upon, a stove and an oven in order to eat. This generation is certainly dependent upon, DoorDash and Uber Eats and what have you. So they have everything on demand. we had the question from one of our viewers here, and I bring it up because my wife always says that our food takes a long time, right? And what she means by that is it's a long, prep time and a lot of stuff before, like for instance, curry, right? You put the seasoning in the pot, and you start to put your vegetables and your other seasoning in that pot before the meat even goes in, right? Or whatever your main protein is. In my case, it would be chickpeas or something like that, or eggplant or something like that. But you put that kind of stuff in before that, right? So that's a whole process, So to a point of the question here, do you prep ahead of time for anything, or you just kind of go into the kitchen and start going with the flow?
I usually like to prep beforehand because doing it the same time, like said earlier, it's a process. It takes some time. You have to get all your vegetables cut up, like you said, get everything. Like, to be honest, what I normally do is I get, like, for instance, you go to your local Costco, Sam's Club, whatever, and pick up a bag of chicken. I wash and season it. Wash, just the word wash, and season my chicken. And
say it again for him, Jerome.
Just gotta wash. And basically pre-season, and then I put it into my deep freezer. So then at least that portion is taken out, so I'm ready to kind of go. But if you don't prep ahead of time, especially for a lot of the cultural dishes, you end up lacking, like you said, the flavor, or you lack in other areas. So I usually do all my prep work and just designate one day of the week. I don't have no problems with leftovers, which I know a lot of people aren't for, but I tend to try to meal prep within, at least for the week, of like my lunch and my dinner. So that my breakfast is when I'm kind of doing on the go. But if you don't, like, for me, if I have to sit down today and start from now, I probably won't finish until the wee hours of the morning.
It's labor intensive for sure.
Very.
So talk to us about the prepping of the menu itself. Are you prepping dishes based on the people who will be eating, or are you just prepping based on whatever's coming to you, what you feel like cooking, the foods that you can find available? Talk to us about how you prep.
That's a good one. I mean, it's kind of a mix. So, like, if I have a set menu in my head, like, I guess someone who likes to cook, you think about food a lot more than I think the typical person. So, like, I'm already thinking about what I'm prepping for next week, even though we're right now on Thursday, just so that I know. So, if depending on what kind of setup I want to do, like, for instance, if it's like, for instance, a big event like 4th of July. Last 4th of July, I did a prep. And what I wanted to do was make, and once again, I'm about to bring up that V word, I made everything that was a vegan 4th of July. But when you look at the plate, you really can't tell. There was barbecue meatballs, quote unquote. There was vegan hot dogs. There was fried oyster mushrooms that look like fried chicken. Like, it was this setup. So it also depends on who's eating it. Because like I said, some people are afraid of the V word. So like, I have a very close god sister. The minute I say vegan, is like, oh, she doesn't want it. So I have to either trick her into be like, oh, you should try this food. And then afterwards say it just so that it's like, oh, this wasn't so bad. But I mean, it depends on what individuals are looking for. And then depending, and like, especially if I've made food for you once or twice, I have normal favorites. So like, I have different friends that, for instance, curry chicken, if I'm going to show up to their house, it better be in my hand, or I'm going to have to go back home. Or there's this.
Best believe it.
Or there's like this cake is a parfait cake that I make that I can't not make if I'm going to be showing up to that household. So I guess it just depends on what the individual's kind of looking for and the foods that, I know it would spark their interest. But I also have these things. So this is something I shared with my father. And what we used to call it was a try-a-thing, which was you put something together you think might work and then see how it turns out. One of my try-a-things was these tamarind stew cupcakes. I love tamarind stew. So for individuals who don't know, it's like a tamarind fruit.
Yo, Chris. Yo. his Tom on stew cupcake is banging.
Jerome have me over here ready to take a bite out of my arm. So
I know, right?
Sorry. But yeah, no, those are the type of things I try to do, like throw in random things that might work, or because also I'm trying to also build a menu of things that I can do, like a book that I can leave, family to come, so that that generational pull of history is with it.
Oh, I love that, Olive. I really love it. So yeah, I'm gonna ask a question, but I kind of feel like I'm getting the answer already from what you're saying, right? And the question is for you in particular, as you're going through the process, is cooking therapeutic for you?
I would say yes. For the most part, it's therapeutic. It's the idea of just combining things, the enjoyment. Like I said, I enjoy food. The being able to say, oh, let me see if I put this and this together, how it blends. Let me try it this way. Maybe I need to add this. So it's this movement. Mind you, there have been some oopsie daisies when it comes to some of the things I've made. Those tend never to make it to the ground, but but everything else, like as things come along and go, it's a journey, but it's a fun one. And like I said, it's just an exploration of what's out there, the different things, because there's a lot of things that someone may have not tried or seen or had before that now it's like, oh my goodness, I never knew about this, but this is amazing.
And I think that's an important point, right? So I'm going to ask a question. I'm hoping you're going to go in the direction that I'm thinking you're going to go, right? But how important is experimentation when it comes to cooking?
Oh, I think it's very important. It's some of those quote unquote random flukes that actually becomes masterpieces. So for instance, you made a mistake and added an extra cup of flour in this. Okay, well, maybe now I need to, instead of making a cake, this market might become become a waffle or something. This idea, it happens. I remember mixing something and I was like, oh, I added way too much of this. So now I need to work it. Because it also, with that exploration, it also helps you to fix things that you may have made a mistake. And like, for instance, just a heads up, if something's too salty, you add a little bit of sugar, it kicks off the salty taste and it kind of makes everything bland. But you don't know that if you haven't done the experimentation and what's not. And I also experiment, and I guess I should change the word, more or less. I do my renditions of other cultural foods as well. So that, for instance, we don't really make samosas in the Virgin Islands, but I love them. I've actually made one from scratch using like whole wheat, and it was amazing to me. My brother had it and really liked it, and it was the idea of just making sure that I try to stick as close to that culture's setup, but not mess it up, so to speak. Nothing frustrates me more than to see someone put forth someone else's culture saying that this is it when it's really not. Because for those who try to do that same recipe and not like it, now you've kind of hurt that person's culture overall.
Go ahead, Chris, because go ahead.
This is more of a personal question for me, right? And this is getting into the details of the actual cooking process. So I've, thrown some stuff together, and I consider myself to be okay. I won't let you taste my food yet because I don't want to get the rap into the
Don't let them scare
you. But it's okay. So sometimes I'm experimenting, right? And I'm just throwing a little bit of something here, a little dash of that there, and then it comes out great. My problem is I don't remember what I threw in there, how much of it. So are you writing your stuff down? Talk to us about how you remember the actual process when it does come out right.
And that is a very hard question to answer. The reason why is I struggle to be able, and that when it comes to recipes, I struggle to be able to know how much I put in certain things, just because I kind of throw it. I don't know and this is probably going to be something interesting to hear, but about 80 to 90% of the things I make, I actually don't taste until I'm about to eat it. Meaning I don't taste it in between time. A lot of it goes with, for me, is the sense of smell. So how things smell, the aroma that comes, I'm very keen to that. But to say, oh, I put in 3 tablespoons of this or 4, I struggle with that. It actually came to the point where I was making my own like Caribbean like dry rub for meats, and I literally had to weigh each container before and after just to get the numbers close. But it's difficult. So that is a good one. I mean, I would say if you keep on trying to recreate that same, I guess, experiment, you'll start tasting what might be missing or what needs to be added. And that kind of helps you see. But like, for instance, seasoning my chicken, I dump stuff all over it, mix it up, look at it, smell it. If it smells right and it looks right, then it's good to go. Otherwise, I need to add a little bit of this because this is missing this in there, or it's not showing the colors necessary.
That ain't gonna help the amateur type. You know what I mean? That ain't helpful for the amateur at all.
One step at a time, from boiling water to boiling tea.
But what it does say is that, you know, it's okay to experiment and kind of, you know, go and figure out new things with food, certainly foods that may not be, you know, as you said earlier, not native to your culture, your upbringing. But, you know, you try it out because, you know, you just want to try it out, right? For you, you know, cooking is therapeutic. You know, you certainly find a joy in, you know, delivering that dish to somebody and seeing their response, right? So I think that's an amazing trait. You know, there was this one time that you had to experiment with some dumb bread and it didn't turn out so good.
Yeah. Hey, we have our mistakes.
Yeah, you missed it. But the fact that you even tried, right? Like, I wouldn't even try it for, you know, I mean, I won't try it for a lot of things. My role is I'll season the meat. I don't eat meat, but I'll season it and it tastes great. And I know, because to your point, you know, I'll smell it. I know what seasonings go well with each other and stuff like that. For back in the day when I used to eat meat, right? Go vegans. Or vegetarians. Yeah. So we had a question in the comments that I think is appropriate as well. What kind of music do you listen to when you cook or bake, or do you listen to any music?
Okay, so I am a true soca feta. So I listen to soca all the time. Like, if there was a hidden camera in here, you all would be thinking I am working up with my food. It's because it's, like I said, I'm putting parts of my soul into this food. So if I'm listening to soca, I'm jamming. Like, the music is on. You swear there is a party happening in my house, but it's just me, my pots and pans, and just the smell of fragrances of home. So 9 times out of 10, if I'm making something, soca is on the back play.
I've been trying to hold this question to the end, right? But I can't hold it any longer. And Ralph, you may know what's coming, but
yeah.
I have had this conversation with you, Jerome. You may not remember this. And I know Ralph has. And I guarantee there's dozens of others who have as well. And you clearly have a joy for cooking and sharing that experience with others. When are we going to get a cookbook or a show or some type of, you know, I can order off online and, you know, pop it in the oven, something, man, something.
I definitely hear you. That actually is funny. I want to make a cookbook. I've already thought of the process of what I want. Is just now kind of getting the recipes that makes. So you remember how I talked about I want something that connects to our history and what's not. So what I was trying to start to do is make a cookbook that has different spices and stuff connected to our culture, as well as putting the historical overlay of it. So like I talked about molasses, I was working on like molasses type cookies, or adding it into like a barbecue sauce. Actually, there is a barbecue sauce that I do plan to make. It's going to be, and I'll share it because it's not like anyone has the recipe for it, but it's a guava barbecue sauce with infused portions of Crucian rum guava in it. It is by far one of the best barbecue sauces I've ever tasted and made. And that I might be able to dabble into that because it has our cultural like types of fruits. And once again, guava is not only found in the Caribbean, it is found in a lot of different places, even in Mexico. But the barbecue sauce, I've had people who don't eat chicken. So Ralph, you might want to watch out, but I've had people who don't eat chicken.
Put on some jackfruit. I am good. Barbecue sauce. That gonna get me drunk too.
So yeah, a cookbook is the route I really kind of want to go because, like I said, I like the mix and infusion. So I've looked into just the different herbs and what's not that connect to home, or even just in the Caribbean as a whole.
Well, and that's a really unique idea, right? Because I can't think of a cookbook, not that, I'm a cookbook expert by any means, but I can't think of a cookbook where it actually ties back to the history or talks about the ingredients or where they actually came from. So that's really unique. I like that.
Yes.
Yeah, so we got some comments about what you just said there about getting out there and delivering some meals to folks. Right? So you're certainly making Chris and I hungry on this call. You're sounding like you're making everyone else hungry too. So you might want to consider, right, maybe doing some cooking or baking classes, teach people some basic meals. Yeah, and to your point of continuing the traditions and the cultural identity, another form of being able to do that.
Oh, definitely. And like I said, also, I want to talk about the idea of just switching up diets, mixing things in. I'm going to throw in, like I said, vegan, or even changing up just the things, because I don't know if many people realize or connect that our foods are not technically bad, but it's just that because, of course, it connects to slave trade and the parts of the animals and the parts of the things that we have, our food inherently isn't the best. But there's ways to do slight changes that make it work okay. Like, for instance, a lot of people love my curry chicken. Normally, curry chicken is made with vegetable oil. I haven't made curry chicken with vegetable oil in eons. I actually do it with olive oil, but you can't taste or tell the difference. But that's just because I make sure that everything kind of blends together. Or I actually have recently I don't eat rice as much. There's something called farro. It's a healthier ancient grain. Is that mixes taking baby steps. I think a lot of people are trying to do these big jumps, when if you do baby steps into just changing up little things, it can make a world of a difference.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I like it as well. So let's say I come to you and I say I'm on a diet. Ooh. What type of dish are you going to prepare? And we can dive into the concept of a diet and everything too. But I'd love to get your ideas or your thoughts on that.
See, for me, the word diet, I think how people see it, they see it more or less, in my opinion, as a fad, something that you do just for a set time. Oh, I want to get quote unquote sexy to be going to the next party or event. I want to be ready for that summer body to get where I need to go. But so for me, it's more of a lifestyle change of like I said, little things that kind of build. But say you wanted something that you were saying you want something to eat, you want in a certain diet. I tend to lean towards things that are more natural based. So that way you don't really have to worry about, oh, is this really bad? Like I said, instead of white rice, actually the farro, for instance, farro is better than white rice and brown rice. To me, it has a better taste and a better texture. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to do something, for instance, that's curry, but you don't really want it to be oil based, you can kind of make it like now this would be a little bit drier, but you can make it where it's like more like a bake, or like even, I've never tried the air fry thought process, but I'm actually do that. The next time I post, I'm gonna have to tag you all of that. But I'm sure there's a way to coat it so you could get it. Cause I've done a shake and bake curry chicken, which was really good. But I like the idea of natural ingredients. I think individuals don't realize, as people or as humans, as far as evolutionary perspectives, we haven't evolved anywhere, but our foods are constantly evolving, constantly changing, new ingredients, new quote unquote chemicals, but I don't think our body can process those. And the microorganisms are quote unquote in our gut, if you didn't know, also don't do well too much with things too much changing. So as far as the diet is concerned, I would say, like, I'm not gonna give you lettuce alone. It'll be something that's mixed maybe with lettuce, avocado, your healthy fats, you have your tomatoes, you have a balance, so that you are not left hungry. I don't want you to, I think the worst thing to do is to go somewhere and leave hungry after you eat. That's happened to me a couple times where I look at the plate, I was like, oh, this is nice, but I'm gonna have to eat when I go home. So that kills the purpose of the whole idea of eating quote unquote better.
That's awesome.
I see you, Oliver, how you start to bring in, some of the microbiology and all of that, PhD stuff you got going on. But you make some solid points, right? And I kind of wonder, that there's all of these, to the diet point, there's all of these fads, right? One thing over another thing. This is better than that. What I kind of heard you say is that, look, just eat well and choose baby steps, to your point, choose different alternatives, right? Instead of white rice or brown rice, the other grain that you were talking about. Is there for the novice, right? Is there somewhere that they can go and kind of get that information on how they can slowly start to eat differently to support a more lifestyle change?
Surprisingly enough, it's usually in your neighborhood. I started looking at books in my public library. I searched for things on like low, so for instance, I looked over a low fat diet setup, or look at things that said more natural based, or and mind you, there's YouTube followers. There's a couple that I follow that I see what meals they make. There's one, her name's like Danny Spees, and she had made a potato salad, and in it has like 1 spoon of light mayo. The rest of it is plain Greek yogurt. When I did it, I followed her recipe. It was amazing. It tasted just like potato salad, but it had half of the fat. But then I think actually one of my closest friends, I could say, and also I consider her like my little sister. I'll never forget this. This is a memory I'll never forget. We were, of course, being undergraduates. We're going to the grocery store. I'm driving. I go to pick up, and this is where I would say my journey started. I went and I picked up Chef Boyardee. That's something I used to eat as a kid when there was nothing else made, something quick and simple. And when I picked it up, she literally screamed. And I was like, what's wrong? She's like, do you know how much sodium is in that? And that alone made a bigger change, because now, are you looking at the back of the things that you pick up in the store, or are you just picking things up? So when you start looking for things that you can't pronounce, so now you're looking for more natural based things, those things kind of come in. Or if even you have, it amazes me how many people don't realize you are walking with a computer in your pocket, in your hand. You talk on it every day, and it gives you so much information, whether it be little things on what's healthy, what's the recommended amounts of X, Y, and Z, say it's sodium, say it's sugar amounts, all of that. All you have to do is ask Google, ask Siri, ask Android, because I'm going to big up my team Android for the few who do have Android. But it's the idea of just little things searching. I mean, and then even when it comes to even your own health, searching for things. I think a lot of people look for what comes in a bottle, or basically like pills or medicine, when a lot of the natural foods that we have do or help in these ways if you would just start to incorporate them into your quote unquote diet.
It's interesting that you bring that up, and that brings up a couple of thoughts for me, right? I'm somewhat ashamed to say that I'm a fan of Taco Bell. And I looked the other night, I was having a craving. I don't indulge in it too much, but I'm like, man, I would really love some Taco Bell tonight. And I looked on the menu on my computer because I was doing some work on the side, and they had this little icon, and I clicked on the icon and it said high sodium content. So I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? So I started doing some research. One of the dishes that they serve has more sodium content in it than what's supposed to be for your daily intake. And I would eat 3 or 4 of them things, no problem. No problem at all. So happy to say that I did not indulge in Taco Bell, and I haven't since. So I'm learning. I'm learning, right? The other thing I learned, and I've never forgotten this, and I can't remember where I heard it. If you look at the back of a can or, you know, whatever it is, and look at the ingredients, and you can't pronounce the ingredients, they're probably not good for you. So
Exactly.
to your point, right? I try to stick to the stuff that I can pronounce, the stuff that I recognize. If it starts going into, you know, a whole bunch of stuff that I have to Google and look up, I'm just gonna skip it and move on.
Definitely. I've used that setup for, like, if there's something I really like and I'm like, it's sad. Sometimes I don't want to look at the back because I was like, I don't want to ruin my experience, but it happens.
Yep.
Yeah, there's this person on Instagram that I follow. I think I am surviving vegan or something like that. And the saying that she has is what has me responding to this. She says the front is for entertainment and the back is for education.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, the front is for entertainment. Because you notice on the front, they'll say organic, they'll say natural, they'll say plant-based, right? But then you flip on the back, it's like, where is all of that thing you said on the front, right?
Exactly.
It's not present. And especially in our culture, right? Our, you know, Black diaspora across the board, you know, certainly here in the States, we tend to eat food that is the way that it is prepared, and the type of food that we eat is bad for us, right? Mm-hmm. It causes heart disease. That's the number one killer in the African American community. You know, diabetes, another probably number two killer in the African American community. We consume these foods, and we tend, you know, again, we talked about how the joy that the food brings us, right? And the events that we go to, that we have fun at, and the foods out there, and we tend to associate the food with a good time. But we also have to consider the way that it's what we're consuming is really, you know, the fuel for our body, for our cells, and all of that jazz. And as a result, it can either take the body, you know, down or up, right? You know, if you say down being bad and up being good, it can take the body in the direction that you may or may not want it to go. So, hey, this is a PSA: eat better, guys.
And one step at a time.
I have a question related to that. Is it possible to eat healthy or better on a budget? Because, you know, you could go get something fast food. You could get a whole meal for $5 and make it a large. So is it possible to have a healthy prepare that's tasty where you can do it, you know, for a reasonable cost?
That's a good one. I mean, for me, I think that's very possible because I cannot do that. So normally when I do my meal preps, I spend for that week $30, and it's covering my breakfast, my lunch, and my dinner for the entire week. So if you broke that down, I'm paying $5 a day, or $6 a day on my meal. It's all about, it's basically about planning. It's what, first off, I usually try to look, and this is, I guess, where creativity kind of comes into play sometimes. I look to see whatever grocery stores that you enjoy going to, see what's on sale that week. Based on what's on sale that week, then you can maybe plan to make meals that match it. So that way, now you're getting the cheapest cost things. And mind you, they're still healthy. So you can still get, for instance, I had a green smoothie this week. The kale that I bought, not the kale, the collard greens that I bought was $1.50. And that's covering part of the beginning. Of course, there's bananas, but those are like, what, 69 or 68 cents a pound. I only need like 4 of those. Avocado is probably the most expensive, but I think that was $2. And you cut those in quarters. And so you have, when you start to have a plethora of things, especially like I said, I usually look at the sale item things first to kind of try to make my meal prep situations. but also it's just like I said, finding the right places to buy stuff to, because I know a lot, and especially even for the diaspora in general, we don't seem to have the same avenues for the amount of grocery stores, depending. So the quote unquote like food deserts, where you only have the fast foods and then you only have convenience stores. Now, where do you buy your foods to make it work? So that's where I guess if the world was a perfect world, we can have places where individuals can buy sustainable foods and goods to help them. Because to me, the best way to eat your best is if you make it yourself. Yes, it takes time, but like if you make a burger in your house, it's not going to have as much sodium as a burger at a fast food restaurant. If you made the potatoes, if you cut the potatoes to make your fries yourself, they're going to be healthier. They may not be the double arch look fries, but they'll still sustain your needs. So it's very feasible. It's just that sometimes you kind of have to play with the market, see, like I said, what's on sale, be able to look into creative ways. And mind you, like I said, you have a powerhouse in your hand. If you ask Google, you ask Siri, I need a meal that has, let's say, black eyed peas and okra. You're going to find at least 5 dishes that will have that. So that way now you can play. Now, will you like it? It's like I said, it's experimentation. It's a journey. Maybe it didn't work this way this time, but you realize, oh, maybe if I added some pig's feet, it might work great. So
Nope, it'd be horrible. Don't do it, people. Don't do it. But I kind of like those. That's some life hacks you just shared right there.
For
right?
sure.
That's an amazing life hack, because I never thought of that. That's amazing. So to the point of the people in the comments, man, you need to have a little video series or something.
I keep saying it.
I've been thinking about different things, because like just even buying from one grocery store, putting the things together and making a meal, I've thought about that, just because, like I said, many people don't know what to get at the grocery store, or they just buy their normals, versus being able to say, oh, let me dabble in this. Like I've dabbled in areas that I'm like, oh, this is great. Like for instance, I would say I tried fennel and it's not for me. It works great for others, but it's not for me. I used to hate beets. I love beets now. It's just that I had to prepare them differently. So it's being willing to, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people struggle to be able to go outside of their comfort zone, especially when it comes to food. But like I said, I guess the idea of this whole topic of food and joy, they're afraid that they won't get the joy from the food they're taking in. So they're like, I'll stick to my norms. But like you said, we have different ailments, different things, and there's little things. If you only knew, i.e., if you have diabetes, you might want to try and eat broccoli more spinach. Spinach is one of my favorite things. You mix that up with some rice, it works great. You put that in soup or spaghetti, it works great. If you want something sweet to offset the whole mix of your pasta mix, add some corn. It's still good things that balance off each other and kind of blend well, but it takes time to realize. And like I said, sometimes you may hit a snag, but then it's like, okay, now you know the next time that doesn't quite work in this mix.
You said, we need to ask Siri or ask Alexa. What we really need to do is ask Jerome. I wish I had a little caricature cut out of you, on my kitchen counter where I could just say, hey, Jerome, what you think about this one? This is working.
I might have to take that. Look for the outcome soon.
Right, exactly. So in your estimation, at the end of the day, what is it that makes a good cook?
I think what really makes a good cook, and I think that stands out, is someone who enjoys seeing someone else smile, enjoy the passion and foods that bring. Because there's some people who just cook because it's their job, and sometimes it shows up in the end result. It may look pretty, but it may not have the soul, I guess, as if you want to say soul food, it doesn't have the soul of a good food. Like it's just kind of there. I will give you one example. I did a cake competition and I made this cake and basically people tried it, and then basically you put in tickets to see who has like the best of the best. I ended up losing to a rum cake. I don't know how that happened, but I was second. But one of the clients who came in and like dropped all of his tickets in my container, and he was like, the icing you put on this cake reminded me of this older lady in my neighborhood in Philly when I was a kid, and I got that. And out of everybody who said things, that was one of the things that stuck out the most to me, because I just now brought you back in time. I connected to a part of your soul that remembered this minute thing that others may not have noticed, but it meant the world to you at that time. So I think a good cook takes you through time. It's almost like Quantum Leap.
Every time we have a conversation, I just don't understand why you're doing microbiology. But what you just said there was profound, right? That was powerful, on how food is so important in our lives and in our experience as human beings, as relational as it is, and your ability as I'll call you a Chef Oliver, as your ability to transport people across time, dig deep into their memories and pull out some of the amazing experiences that they had.
So I know we're running short on time, and we haven't even gotten into the desserts yet.
Yeah.
I've also seen the desserts as well, the cakes, the tarts. Talk to us about that. And is it possible? I know it's possible to be good at one and not the other, but you seem to be good at both. Talk to us about how you balance the two.
So that's interesting. I've run into actually other chefs, and that's why I kind of realized most either can cook or bake. They usually don't do both as well. I would say if you wanted to find my Achilles heel, I would say, and it's going to be really surprising, I don't make cookies that well. Like regular cookies, like your chocolate chip, they just don't come out in my setup. But anything else when it comes to cakes and pastries, I don't know. And where this thing is, and my grandparents is the one who actually kind of said it to actually my father. And my father told me when I was younger, I made this quote unquote box cake, and I did a orange glaze on top. And they told and it was for their anniversary. And so my father, they didn't tell me. I don't know why grandparents tend to do this sometimes, tell their son and then have their son trickle the information. But they said to him that the cake that we just had does not taste like a box cake. It tastes like I made it from scratch. And so I think those are the little drops and notes that kind of led to me wanting to move into cakes and baking cakes. But then, of course, culturally, we have our Vienna cake that I have to make. Tarts, I'm getting pretty good at. I won't say I'm 100%, but I'm like 99% to where I want it. Being a perfectionist, of course, designing cakes and stuff is my drive. But dessert wise, it just kind of comes easy to me. A lot of baking is measurements, so you have to be kind of precise on that. But then also seeing the nuances of, if you scoop the flour this way, your cake is more dense. What types of flours you use? So it's like, and here's where the science comes in, Ralph, the idea of the chemistry that's needed, the baking powder that helps to cause bubbles that cause the cake to rise. All of this kind of mixes into science, which also, I guess, in essence, one thing I will say is that I always strive for diversity, not only in people, but in the area of STEM. So when I finish my degree at Howard, I also want to get more people that look like us in avenues where we're not. And if that also includes baking and cooking, I'm here for it.
Real quick, one of our viewers says I have to ask for a sample of your rum cake. So I'll be keeping an eye out in the mailbox. Send it.
No problem. The top one is a passion fruit rum cake using Crucian rum, because I have to back up Via all the way.
Yeah. So as we close out, what final thoughts do you have for our topic this evening? You've shared so many gems that I know I personally will start using moving forward, but if you had to sum it all up, what would you say to our viewers?
I would say food, it soothes your soul, but it also nourishes your body. It's the one thing that you don't have to know the language for. It's that one thing that once you give it, especially if you have the true feel and love and the person knows that it's in the food, it tends to just bloom and shine. And so that way, once you are apart, say you are not, say you're moving away, or you have this distant connection, it's the way of how you can keep part of someone's soul that connects and makes your day just a little better.
Man, when you say that make me want to slow down when I eat my food and really take it in.
You can't rush it. You can't rush it.
Oh man, Oliver, we thank you for joining us tonight. Certainly, our viewers thank you as well. They were blowing up in the comments, questions and laughing and engaging and talking about birthday cakes that you've made for them with the Trini flag draped over it, and they still have pieces of it in their freezer.
Oh, nice.
Eating it by one. Hey guys, we went over a little bit. We thank you for sticking with us. If you want to follow Jerome, is Pates and More on Instagram. That's PATES and More on Instagram. Jerome, do you want him to follow your other handle too?
Yeah, they can, because there's meal preps in that one. So Pates and More is more cakes and pates. My other one is more like all the meal preps I do per week. So if you see something there you like, hit me up. I'll send the recipe at least to the best without, measurements might be a little off, but you can always try it out.
Try a thing, right?
Exactly. Try a thing.
That's exactly it, right? That's certainly the takeaway for tonight is, if you haven't, tried something before, try a thing, figure it out, experiment, enjoy. There's such richness in food. Both from a health perspective and certainly from a joy perspective. We thank you guys for being here with us tonight. We thank you for joining us. Let's congratulate Jerome on his first podcast.
Thank you for having me too.
And join us again next week, Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern. Follow at Breathe Easy Media, where you will be able to know the shows that are coming up for us and what kind of stuff that we're talking about that's going to bring you joy in your life. Again, we thank you. And until next week, have an amazing experience called life.